It was determined that he had suffered from approximately 67 stab wounds of varying depth and severity.
A 24-year-old woman is accused of stabbing a 65-year-old man to death on his Massachusetts houseboat. And if you thought that was bad, she's also accused of killing one of his dogs. Originally arrested on unrelated warrants, she's now being held without bail on charges of murder and animal cruelty. We were in court for a hearing this week where the judge heard disturbing details about what police say Nora Nelson did. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Back in February, 24-year-old Nora Nelson was already wanted by law enforcement in Suffolk County, Massachusetts, when officers unexpectedly found her on a houseboat in Charlestown. This is outside of Boston. And they'd been called there to do a welfare check on a local attorney, 65-year-old Joseph Donahue, after his family couldn't get in touch with him. Now, after Nelson reportedly acted suspicious when police arrived, they searched the boat, and that is when they found Donahue's body. He'd been stabbed dozens of times, and even one of his dogs was found dead in the water, apparently strangled to death. So officers, they take Nelson in on these unrelated warrants. She is a person of interest into the investigation into Donahue's death, and she was being held without bail thanks to the warrants, which we're going to talk about a little bit more, but she was eventually indicted for murder and animal cruelty. But first, I want to talk about what happened in court on Friday. So to do that, let me bring on criminal defense attorney William Korman, who's been following this case closely. A lot of people talking about this, right, William?
They sure are. They sure are. I mean, it was an attorney, a well-known attorney who was unfortunately murdered in a tragic and unspeakably gruesome way. And I think it has the attention of the legal community and Boston in general.
Yeah, it's a bizarre case from the very beginning. You got a houseboat, dozens of stab wounds, this cruelty to animals, a lot of strange details all in place. So I want to break down Nelson's court hearing from Friday when she was given the opportunity to hear the charges against her in connection with Donahue's death and enter a plea. Take a look.
Ms. Nelson, on May 28, 2025, the grand jury for the County of Suffolk returned 3 indictments against you. Do you waive the formal reading of offenses 2 and 3?
Yes.
Thank you. And as to indictment 2584 CR 00258, offense 1, charging you with murder. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Suffolk SS, at the Superior Court Department of the Trial Court for Criminal Business, begun and holden at the City of Boston within and for the County of Suffolk. On the first Monday of May in the year of our Lord 2025, the jurors for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, on their oath, present that Nora Nelson, on or about February 1st, 2025, did assault and beat one Joseph Donahue with intent to murder him or her, and by such assault and beating did kill and murder the said Joseph Donahue. How do you plead to that offense, guilty or not guilty? Thank you. And as to offense 2, charging you with malicious killing or injury of domestic animal. And as to offense 3, charging you with cruelty to animals. How do you plead to those offenses? Thank you, Mr. Magistrate.
All right. And just for the record, since the microphone was fairly silent, the defendant entered a plea of not guilty as to each of these offenses.
William, from the charges alone, you can't get a great sense of what's happening here. But what do we think about this connection between Donahue and Nelson? I mean, some articles have called them lovers, others have said they're partners. Is it believed they live together? It's a very strange alleged crime.
Yeah, I mean, I think the common inference is that the two of them were involved in some sort of romantic relationship with one another. Based upon prior court hearings that she's had, you know, she seems to have had a series of relationships with older men, and those have also led to criminal charges. There was a 60-year-old guy she was dating some time ago that led to some domestic violence charges. So she seems to be a woman, at least as far as the court records go, that has been attracted to and has had relationships with older men.
Why did they waive the reading of the formal indictment?
So that's commonplace. I mean, the indictment itself goes on, and normally you're given an opportunity to waive the reading and just short circuit things directly to a plea. So that's common, happens in almost every case.
Hey everybody, this is another Law&Crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to all this? Yeah, well, Morgan & Morgan, they're stepping in to fight to hold these food companies accountable. With decades of experience fighting large corporations, they are ready to stand up for the families who deserve justice. So if your child under 21 has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or fatty liver disease, then visit www.forthepeople.com/food or scan the QR code on screen to learn more. So the prosecutor provided the court with more details about what police found at this marina. And for purposes of this case, very, very interesting. Take a listen.
On February 2nd of 2025, the Boston police responded to One Shipyard Place, which is the Charlestown Marina, to conduct a well-being check of Joseph Donahue. The request was made by members of Mr. Donahue's family who had not heard from him in several days. Officers proceeded to Mr. Donahue's houseboat named the Alyssa, where they encountered a female later identified as the defendant before you today, Nora Nelson. When Miss Nelson answered the door, Mr. Donahue's golden retriever also approached, and she was instructed to secure the animal and then come back and speak with the officers. When she shut the door to do what they had requested, officers observed through a slit in a curtain that she was not securing the dog, but in fact was apparently running around the apartment, cleaning up or picking up different items. When she did return, she was asked where Mr. Donahue was and about his whereabouts, and she provided inconsistent, contradictory, and frankly nonsensical answers. She also provided a fake name of Casey.
William, a lot to unpack there. So they want, her to put the dog somewhere else for everyone's safety. Then she's moving things around inside, maybe cleaning up. Not a good look. These nonsensical answers, very, very suspicious. And we're going to talk more about mental health and mental health examiners, what they allegedly found. But you also wonder how bad is it she's there and this is what she allegedly does?
I mean, look, this is going to be a very difficult case for her attorneys. Candidly, the evidence appears to be overwhelming. There's DNA linkage. There's physical evidence that they find. There's a lot here. There just is. And it's an unusual circumstance where the police almost walk in, if you will, on the cleanup. And not to sound glib, but that just doesn't happen very often. I mean, it could have happened within a few hours of the cops walking onto the boat. So they come in, she's cleaning up, they find the body. It's a houseboat. I mean, it's not a giant house or a mansion or anything. They find the body right there, essentially, wrapped in a carpet, weighted down, duct taped. Ostensibly, she was preparing to throw it overboard. I think that's a common assumption you would make with those facts and circumstances. And I think that, again, the evidence seems pretty overwhelming.
Let me ask you this, and I say this without any backing. I don't have any evidence to suggest this is what they may argue. But when you have a case like this, and the evidence is going to be very hard to suggest that, she just stumbled upon this and found it. Do you think a self-defense argument could be something that may align with all of the incriminating factors? In other words, they should only go with the self-defense argument if that's really what happened. But if I'm trying to think about what could a possible defense be, well, she has to be there. There has to be a reason for her to clean up. If she can come up with some sort of story and evidence to back it up that she was engaged in self-defense and panicked and tried to clean up, we'll talk about mental health later, but is that something that may work?
I mean, again, without knowing all the facts and circumstances, I think that's all they have. I mean, again, this was a gentleman who was stabbed 67 times with such force that part of the knife was broken off, unfortunately, and left in his body. The cops recover the knife. A dive team recovers the knife from the water. I think they're able to match up the broken part off of the knife with, unfortunately, what's left in Mr. Donahue's body. They find fake fingernails, presumably with her DNA, in his body, literally as if she'd attacked him. So if you're going to try to come up with a defense, I think self-defense is the only one that's there. Yeah,
and let me just be clear about something. The prosecutor said that when officers entered the houseboat and did a sweep, that's when they found Donahue's body. Take a listen to this part.
Officer Santos entered the houseboat to conduct a protective sweep, and located Mr. Donahue's body at the stern of the boat beyond the sliding glass doors in his bedroom. The doors were in his bedroom. His body was located on the other side of the doors. Mr. Donahue's body was wrapped in what appeared to be a carpet and other fabric coverings secured with duct tape. There were also dumbbells affixed by a jump rope to his body. Upon further inspection, it was seen that there were a significant amount of reddish-brown stains throughout the apartment, and notably, there was a sheet sort of serving as a curtain to the entrance of the houseboat. It's a bed sheet, and it was covered. The bottom of it was covered in what appeared to be blood. There were also numerous cleaning supplies scattered throughout the living room in an apparent effort to clean up.
Yikes. Wrapped up in a carpet and duct tape, weights already attached, an outdoor area of the houseboat. It seems, honestly, William, you take these allegations as true, police may have gotten there just in time. Assuming what may have been going on here, there's a chance this body might not have been recovered.
I agree. Yep.
And that would have been a very different case, right?
It would have been it probably would have been a missing person case for a while. And then depending on how long it took the police to unfortunately recover Mr. Donahue's body, the evidence would have degraded over time. So yeah, it would have been a very different case if the police had shown up 15, 20 minutes later. And candidly, it would have been a very different case if they showed up a couple hours earlier. Perhaps they would have prevented this tragedy. But again, we don't know what would have happened in that circumstance.
And then, to make matters even worse, the prosecution revealed what they believe happened to one of Donahue's other dogs.
After other officers responded to the scene, a deceased dog, later identified as Mr. Donahue's second dog, Champ, was found in the water at the bow of the boat. Dr. Blackmore Smith completed a necropsy of Champ's body and opined that Champ died by asphyxiation, most likely strangulation.
You know, William, taking the life of another, killing a human being in such a savage way, that's one thing, and it's horrible. Killing the dog is a whole other level. And again, I'm not saying they're going to assert self-defense, but unless they say the dog was trying to attack her, that part of it, it makes it even, I think, tougher to get an impartial jury in a case like this.
100%. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. And yeah, killing that dog really is just, it takes it to a whole other level. I want to play one more part of what happened in this hearing.
The defendant was transported to the Boston Police headquarters that night, where she completed a post-Miranda interview. During her interview, she again provided nonsensical and contradictory answers, again about Mr. Donahue's whereabouts, what they had been doing earlier in the day, and when she had last seen him. She also provided a second fake name, Mary.
There is that fake name again, William.
Yep. And again, she had warrants, as you said at the outset. And again, perhaps somebody can spin look, she didn't really know why the police were there. And consequently, she was giving them a fake name because she didn't want to be arrested on the warrants. None of that's going to get anywhere. But I suppose in the moment, that must have been what she was thinking. And as you alluded to a little while ago, there are some mental health issues here that have been explored by both sides.
We're going to get to that. I want to play one more part. I lied. I had one more part that I want to play from the hearing. Let's take a listen.
On February 4th of 2025, an autopsy was completed of Mr. Donahue's body. It was determined that he had suffered from approximately 67 stab wounds of varying depth and severity. There was a small triangular piece of a knife that was removed from his forehead. The remaining portion of that knife was discovered the following day by a dive team in the water outside the kitchen window of the houseboat. Significantly, there were also 2 faux pink fingernails located on Mr. Donahue's body during the autopsy. And during the execution of a subsequent search warrant, the defendant identified those fingernails as her own. A review of the surveillance from the Charlestown Marina shows Mr. Donahue, the last time he is seen is on January 31st of 2025. Only the defendant is the only person seen entering the boat or coming and going after his last sighting. Those are essentially the facts, Mr. Magistrate.
It's horrible. I mean, it's horrible, and William was alluding to it before about the details of it. So the judge agreed that Nelson should continue to be held without bail, and if she's convicted, she faces life in prison. But what about those other alleged crimes, right? The ones where warrants had been taken out for her arrest. Well, according to Boston.com, Nelson was arraigned after her arrest in February on charges of assault with a dangerous weapon on a person over 60, threat to commit a crime, and destruction of property. These alleged crimes date back to 2023 and 2024. CBS reporting that she had some sort of altercation with an ex-boyfriend who claimed Nelson owed him $300,000. She then allegedly assaulted him. 2024 was about an alleged breach of a contract to buy condos. You're talking about an over $6 million deal per CBS. And CBS also reports that in December of 2024, Nelson was facing charges in Texas for allegedly handing off fake identification. Now, William, there's a lot here. Does any of this play, aside from our understanding about what's going on here, or our reporting of it, from a legal point of view, with the case with respect to Donahue, does any of that come in?
I suppose it could. It's a little early to figure out exactly what a defense would be. But if the defense were going to be some sort of self-defense argument and that he attacked her, then the door could be open to show that she has a history of violence with some other partners of hers. So in that circumstance, it certainly could come in against her. But that would be a very limited exception. Normally, it wouldn't come in. But again, if the door was open because she was going to claim self-defense, the government would be able to show that she had prior incidents of violence against partners.
Let's talk about mental health. We kind of alluded to it. Let's talk about it now. So there has been more than one mental competency evaluation that has been ordered for Nelson over the last few months. In April, a hearing was held where a court clinician talked about the various findings. Outlet Mass Live reports that Heather Jackson told the court that Nelson was given medication because she seemed to be having symptoms of a psychotic disorder, but those symptoms allegedly became, quote, less genuine, and Jackson said Nelson had, quote, a tendency to exaggerate. And while in custody, Nelson has reportedly been withdrawn and flat, tried to apparently harm herself. But Jackson concluded that Nelson lacks the understanding of the seriousness of the allegations. This is according to Mass Live. But the conclusions, as far as competency to stand trial, they still appear to be a bit murky. William, how do we make sense of all this?
Well, again, I think that it cuts both ways, right? We have a circumstance where she's given nonsensical answers to the police. There is an evaluation that indicates she doesn't quite understand what's going on. She doesn't quite understand how serious it is. There will be further evaluations. The case just went to the higher court in Massachusetts called the Superior Court, and undoubtedly there will be further explorations as to her competency to not only stand trial, but her criminal responsibility at the time the alleged incident occurred. So we're at the very beginning stages of this case, even though it's been going on for a little while. Legally, there's still a lot of steps that need to go through. And I'm sure that her attorneys are going to explore whether or not there was some competency, whether or not there is a competency issue, and whether or not she was criminally responsible at the time this happened.
William, it's interesting because Jackson also explained that Nelson, yes, lacks the understanding of the seriousness of the charges, but can't say, if I was understanding this correctly, can't conclude that it's because of a mental illness or personality disorder, right? So is this insanity or not? Is she faking things or not? So you think it might be too premature to really know what that mental health defense might be, if there is a mental health defense?
So Jackson is what's known as a court clinician. A lot of the courts in Massachusetts have essentially on-staff mental health evaluators, and that's what Jackson did. So when the defendant was brought to court, Ms. Jackson did an evaluation. It's a relatively quick evaluation. It happens basically right there in the courtroom or in the courthouse itself. It doesn't have the full in-depth that we would subsequently see after she's been arraigned in Superior Court. So Ms. Jackson or Dr. Jackson wasn't able to reach a whole bunch of conclusions. Mostly that's due to time. I mean, the defendant's about to be arraigned. There's clearly some questions about her mental health. They do an evaluation to see what quick steps should happen next. It's almost like a mental health triage, if you will. Now that the case has been indicted and goes into Superior Court, there will be an opportunity for a much greater in-depth evaluation of the defendant.
But if she doesn't know the difference between guilty and not guilty, and she is having trouble understanding or appreciating what these charges are about, does that fit within the legal definition of insanity under Massachusetts law?
I mean, it can. It can. In order to be competent to stand trial, you have to understand the roles of everybody. Different. But whether or not she's criminally responsible, if she doesn't understand what's happening, if she doesn't understand what she did, sure, that could go some way towards it. But as Dr. Jackson seems to indicate, we're not exactly sure how real this is, and a greater in-depth evaluation is certainly warranted in this case.
Somebody might look at this and say, my gosh, if she did this, stabbing him so many times, the way she was planning to discard the body. Well, first of all, right, from a legal point of view, if she was evading law enforcement and she was trying to get rid of the body and she was, acting suspicious when they come to the door, that doesn't help with insanity because you know what you did was wrong, right? You're trying to cover it up. On the other hand, someone might say, it's such a savage crime that you have to be insane in order to commit it, right? What would your answer be to that?
Well, I suppose that we can say the crime itself is insane without a person actually being insane. You and I can't contemplate what would happen in order to make one of us decide they're going to stab a partner or a lover 67 times with such force, kill their dog, be prepared to hide the body to a point where perhaps no one could ever find it again. So some people could consider that insane in and of itself, but that doesn't mean that the person who does it is insane.
Now, going back to the victim in this case, because sometimes, that does get lost in the details of the crime. Donahue's family released a statement to Boston.com, and this was following his death. And it says, Joe was a wonderful family member, a cherished friend, and a trusted colleague. Always generous and kind, he dedicated his life and career to helping others. He is loved and will be deeply missed. We're grateful for the love and support we've received, and we kindly ask for privacy during this difficult time. Now, while Nelson's expected back in court in July, William, how do you counsel a family who's dealing with a loss like this? What do you say?
I honestly don't know. I don't know. I mean, any death is sad. Doesn't matter how a person dies, any death is sad. But for a situation like this, where it's a savage murder, I think savage was the word you used, and it's apt. It's terrible, it's tragic, and I don't know that there are words.
Yeah. And just to circle back to something that you said before, when you hear about the other warrants that were out for her arrest and her other alleged crimes, do you see a pattern here? You talked about it a little bit, assuming she committed this crime.
Assuming she did everything she's charged with, there does seem to be a pattern here. She does seem to be a violent individual who has had relationships with men. They appear to be older men. Again, as you said before, the other warrant had to do with somebody who was over the age of 60. We know Donahue was over the age of 60. We know she's in her early 20s. So it's hard to say there isn't a pattern. We also don't know what else has happened in her past prior to that.
Yeah. All right, we'll keep a careful eye on this one. William Korman, thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.